I don't want to compare difficulties, but we have a little sense, Jill and I, what it's like to lose a home. Years ago, now 15 years ago, I was in Washington doing Meet the Press. It was a sunny Sunday, and lightning struck at home on a little lake that's outside of our home, not a lake, a big pond, and hit a wire and came up underneath our home into the heating ducts, the air conditioning duct. To make a long story short, I almost lost my wife, my 67 Corvette, and my cat. But all kidding aside.
This is my video update from Nicosia, Cyprus on this Tuesday evening, August the 22nd. Let's talk about some news. So how about Biden and his speech to the people of Maui? He almost lost his 67 Corvette and his cat. What a failure of a speech from the US president. What an ill-timed speech from the US president. He loves to tell that story about the fire, by the way. And each time he tells it, it changes all the time and it gets more ridiculous with each iteration. But this was not the right time or the right place for Biden to break out his home fire story, which is true, according to the Washington Examiner. There was a fire at his home caused by lightning. It was a small fire contained to the kitchen, and it was under control in 20 minutes. This was not the right time, nor the right place for Biden to talk about this fire. This was a major, major fail from the US president. So then Biden, he got into this massive, huge motorcade, and he made his way to a ceremony to honor the victims of the Maui fire. And during the ceremony, 27-car motorcade, by the way, and during this ceremony, Biden fell asleep. He fell asleep at a ceremony, not the first time he's fallen asleep at an event or ceremony, but in this case, he fell asleep at a ceremony honoring, commemorating, grieving the victims of the Maui fire. What a failure from the US president. You're telling me there wasn't a doctor accompanying Biden in this huge motorcade, 27 cars long, maybe even more than that. There wasn't a doctor there who could give Biden some sort of medicine, some sort of shot, a couple of double espressos or something to make sure he would stay awake during this event. And he falls asleep. And the video's everywhere. I mean, it's all over the interwebs now, of Biden falling asleep at an event for the Maui fire victims. What a failure of a trip from the US president to Hawaii. You know, if this was an event for Ukraine, in order to secure another $20 billion in aid for Ukraine, Biden would be wide awake for that. There would be no chance that he would fall asleep for an event like that. But for the Maui fire victims, he decided to take a nap. Anyway, it was a failure of a trip from the Biden White House, but I think at this point, what else could you expect? And since we're talking about Ukraine and trips that ended in failure, Elensky's trip to various cities in Europe was a complete failure. Elensky was in Greece yesterday. I believe this is the final stop of his EU fighter jet tour. And he went to Greece looking for fighter jets, F16s, looking for air defense systems, because Elensky is claiming that he has a new grain corridor set up. so that he can take grain from Ukraine, move it through the Black Sea, and get it to Europe, to the EU. He says that he has this all set up, but he needs air defense from Greece in order to protect the ships that are going to be traveling through this corridor. Anyway, he went to Athens. He crashed a dinner party for leaders of the Western Balkan states. And he wanted F-16s and he wanted air defense systems. And what he left with was a promise from the Greek Prime Minister, Mitsotakis, that when and if he gets the F-16s, Greece will take part in the training of the F-16 pilots, the Ukraine F-16 pilots. That's what he left with. A failure. This was a failure of a trip from Elensky. And to be quite honest, his trip to Sweden, where he was looking for Gripen fighter jets, was a failure, because we now have the Swedish government coming out with a statement saying that they are not going to provide Gripen fighter jets to Elensky. They made that statement after Elensky left Sweden. So when he was there, it was photos and videos and smiles and hugs and kisses. And we're going to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. And then when Elensky leaves, the Swedish government comes out and says, yeah, we have no Gripens to give Elensky. We have no fighter jets to give him. The same thing in the Netherlands. Once he left the Netherlands, you had statements from the government in the Netherlands watering down much of the statements that Elensky made about 42 F-16s. You had the government of the Netherlands saying, well, it's up to 42 F-16s, and many of the F-16s that we have are not really in flying condition, and we're not quite sure when and if we're going to be able to provide those F-16s and how many we're going to provide, and they basically watered down the entire event. And then in Denmark, where he actually got into an F-16 along with the Prime Minister, once Elensky left, we had a statement from the government in Denmark where they said that, yeah, we're going to provide Ukraine with 19 F-16s, but we're going to provide them to Ukraine under certain conditions. And one of those conditions is that those F-16s only fly over Ukraine territory. So, you know, Elensky is really leaving Europe with nothing. He's got a bunch of promises and commitments which really amount to nothing. But he's going to go back to Ukraine, and on the 24th, I believe, is Independence Day for Ukraine, and so he's going to go back and he's going to talk it up as if he traveled around Europe and he was given all kinds of fighter jets and training for fighter jet pilots, and it was a huge victory. But the reality is that he is leaving Europe with zero. A bunch of commitments and promises, but nothing concrete. So that was Elensky's trip to Sweden, to the Netherlands, to Denmark, and to Greece. Though I do wonder what he talked about with Ursula and Michel during the West Balkan leaders event and dinner. I wonder what they discussed. So let's see here. What else should we talk about? Since we're on the topic of Ukraine, we have an article from Forbes with the title, Ukraine is getting F-16s, now it needs cruise missiles. So Forbes is saying that to go along with the F-16s, what Ukraine now needs is JASSM cruise missiles for the F-16s. Not so fast, Forbes, because the F-16s have still not been delivered to Ukraine, and we don't even know if they will be delivered to Ukraine, and Forbes is already talking about getting missiles for those F-16s. You know, Elensky's trip to Europe, it really had the feel of a traveling salesman working for the military-industrial complex. I have the feeling that Elensky was there representing the MIC, and he was actually traveling around Europe to kind of to get the European leaders, like for example the Netherlands or Denmark, to get rid of their F-16s and to speed up the process of purchasing or integrating F-35s. It really seemed that Elensky was there more as a military-industrial complex salesman than the leader of Ukraine. That was the feel that I got from it. And now you have Forbes saying, okay, F-16s, now we need cruise missiles. So let's sell some cruise missiles now. This really has the feel of a sales call. You know, it's Elensky, the MIC salesman. It wouldn't surprise me if that's what he was really doing in these European capitals, working on behalf of the MIC. So let's try to make this video a short one. It's evening here in Cyprus, so I can get this video up quickly. What's happening on the front lines? Well, Russia's advancing towards Kupiansk. They've actually captured the village of Sinkovka, and they're one step closer to capturing Kupiansk. And when they capture Kupiansk, well, then that's going to be a big blow to NATO, the collective West, and to Ukraine. That's going to be a big, big defeat for the Elensky regime. But in the southern direction, in Rabotino, we are getting reports that the Ukraine military, they do control the north part of Rabotino, and they're trying to capture this village in the security zone, in the gray zone. And they're getting close to capturing Rabotino. This has been a nearly 3-month endeavor, and this is the area where the elite 82nd Brigade has been sent, which is the last of the elite reserves that Ukraine has. And they're getting close to capturing Rabotino, but the Russian military is dealing the 82nd Brigade, this elite brigade of Ukraine, pretty heavy losses as they try to capture Rabotino, which is a village in the gray area, in the security zone. It's not even on the first lines of defense, but you know that the Elensky regime, they really want to get Rabotino before the independence, Ukraine Independence Day celebrations. They really, really want that narrative to play out during Independence Day, because Elensky, for his part, he can use the capture of Rabotino to boost morale and to keep the Ukraine public invested in a war that they are losing, and they are losing big. So, National Interest, they have an article with the title, "The Case for American-Led Peace in Ukraine." And the National Interest in this article, they say that it's time for the Biden White House to come to a peace agreement with the Russian government. Not a freeze, not a West Germany, Korea type of armistice or freeze in the fighting. They are calling on the Biden White House to sit down with Russia and negotiate a peace that takes Russian interests into consideration. Quite an incredible article from the National Interest. And they argue that the plan right now from the Biden White House is to try and freeze the conflict, to try and create some sort of Korean style of armistice. But they're saying that the Russians have no interest in freezing the conflict. Why would they? They're winning. Why would they freeze the conflict when they're winning? And so they're arguing that the only solution to end this conflict and to save the Biden White House from what would be a huge debacle if the Russians actually win this conflict and sweep through Ukraine. The only out for the Biden White House, according to the national interest, is to sit down with the Russians and negotiate a peace which take everybody's interests into consideration, including Russia's interests. So I think I'm going to be running out of battery here very, very soon. So let me do a quick clown world and end this video. From Bild in Germany, they have an article with the title, "We don't want to be called Habeck anymore. Cafe on Rügen renames itself." So a cafe owner in Germany, their cafe was called Habeck's. And because Robert Habeck has such a bad reputation in Germany and everybody despises Robert Habeck, or most of the people despise Robert Habeck, and the Green Party, SPD, Olaf Scholz, Baerbock, Habeck coalition, this cafe owner is going to change the name of the cafe to Coast Bar. The name is gone. Habeck's becomes Coast Bar on Friday at 11:45 a.m. Landlady Vanessa Wellbrook, 42, sent a clear signal on Wilhelmstrasse in the Baltic Sea resort of Koren on the island of Rügen. As the owner of the small cozy cafe, 45 seats, she had the lettering on the house facade changed. According to the landlady, the old name Habeck's was bad for business. Many guests stayed away, she tells Bild. Don't call your cafe Habeck's. If you're in Germany, don't call it Baerbock either. Maybe you can call it 360 degrees. Anyway, that's the video, guys. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, and Rockfin. And go to the Duran shop, 10% off. Use the code. Good day. Take care.